She frowns, looking at her hair in the mirror, tilting her head back and forth until she is absolutely sure they will not come loose. It is pulled back into a simple half up, half down. It is elegant and gorgeous, mixing the best of both worlds in a way she knows he loves dearly. Or at least she amends. He had once told her so. As she feels her throat begin to close up again and her eyes begin to burn, she immediately ushers away any such thoughts, reminding herself that today she will be incredibly strong, more strong than anyone believes she can be. She is, after all, about to do something that will entirely change her life. Nothing will ever be the same after today, after those words. Her lips quiver, and she mentally berates herself for focusing on the past. This is the now, not the then. Life is different, and Adam is the same as always, stupid and irritating. There are moments, she knows, when she loves him dearly, and others when she would rather sick a rabid squirrel on him before hearing him speak a single word. I spend half my time, she recalls a quote, thinking about how much I love you, and the other half wishing I had never met you. She nods in response to her own thoughts, and gets an odd look from Melanie, who is putting the finishing touches on the elegant hairdo. What are you thinking about? Melanie, perceptive as always. Abby looks straight ahead into the mirror, meeting her best friend's eyes in reverse. She knows that Melanie can read her mind easily. After all, they've been best friends since high school, sophomore year, and now they are both about to finish graduate school. Abby bites her tongue, hoping her eyes would do all the talking. Abby, listen to me. She knows what is coming. She has heard the same mantra for over 10 years, as Melanie begins to list all the reasons why Adam is not good enough, why he is a fool, why he is an idiot and a jerk. Abigail drifts off to that day in March years ago when they first spoke. It was an accident. They really never should have met. If Melanie hadn't gotten drunk, they never would have, because Melanie messed around with that other guy over spring break and never told Jacob. Well, as if she was really required to tell them. They weren't dating and never would. Jacob got Adam, his best friend, his bro of all bros, to do something tricky, pretend to be a stalker, get Abby, Melanie's best friend, to believe it, and get her to admit to what Melanie had done over break. Abby was easy to trick, even as a junior, and gullible, and was terrified. For hours she tried to convince this stalker on Gmail that everything was happening was silly and that she was going to the police. Obviously it turned out he wasn't a stalker, he was just Jake's best friend, and Adam and Abby struck up a weird sort of relationship. It was kept only the Gmail chat. Whenever online, they would talk for hours. There was no stopping these two. Later on, people would read their chats and ask Abby if she and Adam were dating. With tears in her eyes, Abby would laugh and shake her head. Me? Date him? Ha! He wishes. Mentally, she would always amend it with an I wish. But only Melanie ever really knew that part. And then there was the fight. I felt bad. You started to like me, so I led you on so that you wouldn't be upset. Because leading her on wasn't upsetting enough. They stopped talking April 11th for most of the rest of the year. It wasn't until June they struck up conversation again. He apologized. She accepted. That was what always happened. And her boyfriend at the time hated Adam, the boy who, with the simplest I am, would make her Abby's eyes light up. They talked sporadically. When late August came and he was moving into college, it was even worse. She would still drop him emails, sometimes simple ones, like, "What kind of friend are you?" To which he would teasingly reply, "A bad one who was adjusting to college." But every word made her smile, made her laugh, because despite his breaking her heart, she still held a little candle for the boy she'd never actually met in person. Melanie, on the other hand, had met him, and done much more. She had led him on, and then dumped him on his ass and told Jake. Melanie had broken his nose, and Jacob had broken his arm, though not for hurting Abby, but for trying to get with Melanie. Ironically, Jake and Adam had remained best friends. Abby had never understood that part. Then the spring came, and those stupid words. "If I tell you, will you stop asking?" Melanie had asked. Abby had readily agreed, dying to know who this girl that Adam liked was, knowing that she would definitely give it up if she knew. "It's you." After that, Abby's world began to fall apart again, because they were never really together. She had played unofficial girlfriend when his parents had gotten into that car crash, emailing him from her phone constantly, making sure he was okay, sending Melanie to get him from college because she was out of town and couldn't go herself. Oh, but if she could have, she would have. She spent her time taking care of him, falling harder and harder until she hit a wall, realizing that he would never change, that they would never change, that this little ding on Gmail was all she would ever get from him. So she had to let go. She pulled away, just as she always did. The conversations became sporadic again, only every so often. It killed her to hear that he was sleeping with random girls at school. When she left for college in August, he wished her luck and told her not to be a stranger. She wasn't. She really tried not to be. They chatted occasionally, but as the years went by, there were only varied emails every so often. And then Melanie had gotten the invitation. "Janice and Ryan Beckett cordially invite you and one guest to the marriage of their daughter, Margaret Juliana Beckett, to Adam Logan Taylor." "Abigail, are you listening to me?" A sharp prod on the side brought Abby back to the present, staring blankly at the cream and pink invitation tucked in the corner of the mirror. "Nope," Abigail was quick to reply, looking back up at her friend. "I asked what you were planning on doing," Melanie whispered, resting one hand on her best friend's shoulder, squeezing it softly. Abby looked up at her in the mirror and shook her head. Loose curls swung from side to side when she did so. "My makeup," she says quietly, reaching for the foundation. Melanie knows when to drop it and hurries over to the other bed in the small hotel room, scooping up her dress and moving to the bathroom to change. Foundation, powder, blush, eyeliner, lip liner, lip gloss, primer, eyeshadow, mascara, and blend. She goes through the routine robotically, trying not to focus on the whirlwind of emotions inside of her. Was he really worth it? The last email she received about a week ago had been talking about how angry he was with Maggie for going over budget, for being so vapid, so shallow. She replied, laughing at him, reminding him that he was just as shallow sometimes. The conversation had gone on, but that part of her still wanted to scream that she cared. She didn't. "Are you ready?" Melanie's voice echoes from the bathroom. Abby sighed and stood, stumbling slightly in the unfamiliar heels she'd bought just for the occasion. She looked nice, elegant, but not enough to upstage the bride, of course. "Ready," she whispers. Her voice shakes, but only slightly. Melanie peeks her head out of the bathroom, her beautiful eyes narrowed in suspicion, but she knows better than to ask, and settled for simply shaking her head at her best friend. "Don't do anything I wouldn't," Melanie says, so the two of them hurry down the steps of the taxi. The church, unfortunately, was about a mile away, irritating but necessary in a small place like Marshall. Abby smiles softly, looking at her best friend. "There's not much you wouldn't do, Mel." The blonde considers this for a moment. As they arrive at the church, Abby makes a snide comment, saying that she should sit in the middle of the aisle rather than on either side, as she doesn't know either of the two people being married. For every snarky comment, she receives a hit to the head. Slowly, in couples or groups, people begin to fill the church, and it is 2 p.m. "Just breathe," goes through her head as Melanie squeezes her hand and the bride begins to walk down the aisle. But as the music starts playing and everyone else turns to look at the vision in white, Abby isn't looking at Margaret Juliana, who she hates. She's looking at Adam, reading his expression, and a glance to Melanie, with all her training, is doing the exact same thing. "He isn't happy," Abby finishes for Melanie. Melanie smiles wryly and was going to say, "looking at her," but I agree with that. They get dirty looks from everyone around them. At the front, Margaret's father is shaking Adam's hand. The priest begins to speak. The vows take forever, and Abby is terrified that she will miss it. "If anyone feels that this couple should not be united in holy matrimony, speak now or forever hold your peace." She knows this is it. She squeezes Melanie's hand, and when the redhead realizes what her best friend is about to do, "Abby, no!" But it is too late. "I object. I'm speaking up. I don't want this marriage to go through," Abigail retorts, looking at the priest, who is staring at her in astonishment. "Adam, darling," simpers Maggie, ignoring the shaking of the brunette, turning to her husband-to-be. "Do you know that girl?" Maggie obviously expects her to say no. "Maggie, yes. Her name is Abigail, and I had a dream about this," he says, addressing Abby instead of Maggie. "I don't know if I ever told you. I tell you everything, though I can imagine where I'd leave that part out. 10 years, Abby. Why didn't you come to me before this?" She smiles waspishly. I did so many times. I was right there, but you never noticed." Maggie, I'm sorry." He turns to his bride-to-be, pulling the boutonniere out of his lapel and handing it to her. She screeches. Jacob looks at him oddly and mouths a simple, "Who is she?" "Do you remember, Jake, when you asked to find out what happened to Melanie over winter break, our senior year?" Jake's eyes widen, and he looks from Adam to Abby, realization clear as day. You told me you didn't," he muttered to his best friend, looking angrily. "I lied," says Adam. "I'm sorry I've wasted your time, Minister. Maggie, I'm sorry." He leans forward and kisses his former fiancée on the cheek. She responds with a shriek, and a resounding smack echoes throughout the church. "You absolute bastard! I deleted her emails. I didn't invite her to the wedding, even though I knew you'd mentioned it. I made sure she couldn't be here. How could you leave me for that?" screeches the jilted bride, gesturing madly to the curvy brunette. Abby frowns angrily, but ignores the obvious jab at her looks. "Because Max, don't call me that," hisses the angry woman. "Because I love her." It comes out in one breath, and Adam looks just as shocked as everyone else. "Because she was the one who's been there for me before I even met you. When my parents crashed, she was the one who got me through. When I was worried about papers, she got me back on track. When I was freaking out about my first job, a date, anything, it was Abby who caught me calm. Because she's the best thing to ever happen to me, Maggie, and because, well, I need her. I need this. And because I promised her years ago that maybe in 10 years we could try it. And now, here we are." Margaret's face crumples, and she screams and bursts into tears. Her bridesmaids circle around her, and if looks can kill, Adam and Abigail would surely be dead at this point. He takes off down the aisle, and Abigail meets him at the end of the pew. They kiss quickly and run off. She looks at Melanie once before she leaves and gets a smile in return. And as Adam takes her hand and the two of them run out of the church, Melanie simply mutters, "I knew this would happen."